Hey everyone. I'm going to do a journey into something that Abby did a journey into already. And she discovered some very interesting things, and it's about what is behind all the chaotic stuff in the world. Like, who's behind it? Is there a specific person? Is it a specific collective? We don't like. There's a lot of. I don't want to tell you everything about her video, but we're going to share a link to her video on this one so you can access that and make it so you can watch that video yourself. Now, it was a very, very eye-opening and very interesting concept, and she's wanting me to go into it, and I want to go into it myself because it piqued my interest. And when something piques your interest, you want to look into why. So I'm going to go into that energy to see what I discover and what I experience and share with everyone on this video. And because there is a lot of stuff going on in the world that is, well, you could start listing it all, and then you start to realize, oh my God, things were so much easier 20, 30 years ago. There's always something crazy going on. But there seems to be a lot of really big, loud, crazy things going on right now. And it's usually one or two crazy things, but there's so much going on right now that anything could happen, and all of a sudden our worlds are changed overnight. It's like literally like a Band-Aid is holding everything together at this point. It's amazing how it still isn't just falling apart around us. But one of the things that frustrate me and Abby the most is why people do not work together. Why we always at war, always in conflict. It's very hard to think a certain way and experience life and have to deal with that. And I think for a human being that believes in peace, believes in harmony, believes in respect, believes in treating everybody equally, the word equal doesn't exist in our vocabulary right now. It's like, I want to be the one on top. And the loudest narcissist out there is the one that everybody seems to follow. And that's fairly problematic, to follow people that don't have everyone's interest at heart except themselves. When you have somebody that wants everything themselves and center around them who they are, they're not leaders. Shouldn't even be in power, but our leaders are. What they want, how they want it. And we know as we start breaking down the layers that they're just puppets. And there's other things in behind the veil that are controlling everything. And then you start breaking down the veils even farther and farther and farther, and they take you to some extraordinary, interesting places. So we have way more abilities as a human being than you can imagine, because we have the right to control what is going on in our everyday lives and what's going on around us. When we give that power to other people is when we get ourselves in this mess. And one of the things that has brought up multiple times in things and people I've talked to and journeying that I've done, that good people have to start going into politics, have to start being part of the communities, have to start speaking up, because that's how things change. You change your perspective, you change 1,000 people's perspective, and then 1,000 people change 100,000 people, and then 100,000 people. It goes on and on and on. Because once you change perspectives of people, they will also change everybody they know, or at least have an influence on them. And that's how things start to change. And they can change quite rapidly if enough people believe in the same type of concept and the same type of belief. And I'm not talking religious or cultural beliefs. I'm talking about hardcore morality belief systems that are based on not about what God you worship. It's what you do, how you act, how you help other people. It's your actions that are your belief system. Not what you say that you believe in, it's what you do. So your actions are who you are. because your actions tell you everything about what you do and what. So if you say that, oh, I believe in Jesus Christ, but you go home and molest your children, do you really believe in Jesus Christ? Or the essence of what that means? Actions are your belief system. Period. And enough speaking, because I could talk a lot about this because there's so many wide topics. But all this shit that's happening has layers to it. And what me and Abby try to do is go into the roots of the causes. And when you break and develop and change those roots, to heal those roots, it has an influence on everyone underneath it. And one of the things that Abby does talk about is that we are in a pyramid structure, humanity. At the top is the ruler or the rulers, and everything underneath follows suit. So it was a really interesting journey, and I want you to really watch that video because it is extraordinarily interesting. And it's like when you do these journeys, you're not thinking about this or that or that. It's like it just happens to come around in a journey state, and then you could piece the pieces together and say, oh, wait a second. There's a lot of really interesting things in this that we can actually pinpoint to aspects of our history, or the things that are going on inside everybody's mind. So I'm just going to relax here for a minute, and I'm going to go into this journey, and I want to see what I see. I already know what C Sheen, but I'm going to take that, pull it aside, set it aside, and I want to experience it in my own way. I'm seeing really disturbing images right off the bat, because I'm going into what is behind all this, and I'm walking on an actual very narrow pathway, and there's a spiral thing that comes right at me and misses me by millimeters, and it's like a screaming like a blade that literally has pieces of body parts all over it, and it's coming right at me, and I just continue to walk. But when that doesn't have any effect on me, it switches to other things. Now blades coming directly at me, and then I just allow the blades to go through me, and they have no effect, and I continue walking. And literally there's 1,000 guns appear, and they're just shooting me, and I continue to walk and allow everything to go through me. And it just goes on and on and on. It gets more absurd as I walk. And I get to, what's the best to describe as bubbles of stuff here. It's like, it's circular orbs that go straight up, and it's a whole wall of it, but it's also thick. So I have to walk through this in order to get to the other side. And one of the things, they don't touch the bubbles. This is what they tell you, like, but there's 1 billion bubbles in this wall. How are you supposed to walk through it without touching it? So I'm standing at the front of this wall, and I project myself to the other side of the wall instantaneously, and I just bypass it. And this is what I do originally. And it's like, then you end up at the beginning again. So you can't bypass it that way. You have to actually go through the wall and not just skip around it. So I just create myself to be 1,000,000 versions of myself, and I just walk through the wall. And I avoid every single one of the bubbles and reappear on the other side just before I walk through. Because you have to be completely formed when you walk in, and then on the other side as you walk out. So this is what I do. And I don't touch any of the bubbles. And and there's a popping sensation, and all this wall just collapses, and everything just collapses. It's like there's water everywhere, but it's not really water. It's kind of it's hard to say what it is, actually. It's not water, though. It's too airy to be water. It's too light. It's not heavy enough. And it very quickly, everything dries up in a complete desert. And there's corpses all through this desert, like hands, there's skulls, there's legs sticking up. And it's like a dead desert. And it's very small. It's not very big. It's like a big yard that goes on for about 100 feet. And then it comes to an actual broken doorway. A broken archway, actually, not a doorway. And as I walk in the desert, the closer I get, the stones start to put themselves into the archway to like literally every bone that you step on crunches, and it flies, and it literally, as you're walking through, I need to step on the skulls and the broken bones, and this is what has to be done. And as I do that, these pieces of bone go into the doorway. See, I could simply go to where Abbey originally ended up, but there's something about the importance of going through trials aren't the best way of putting it, going through the journey to get to it. Because it seems like everybody's journey will be different, and you have to go through the long way. You can't simply just go there. You could, but it's not something you should be doing. There's something important about going through the long way. So the last one is a pelvic bone, and it's quite large, and I step on it, and it's like there's two parts of the pelvic bone go in the last two pieces. It's very specifically a pelvic bone of a female, actually, and it creates almost like it's now the womb is open. You're walking into the womb is what it feels like. And I walk through the archway, which is now glistening and sparkly. It's like black with sparkles through it. It's not stars. It's much different than that. And I walk through it, and it's like the stuff is very sticky. So I just allow myself to be. I burn originally what's there, and then I'll turn and don't allow anything to touch me. And I walk through it. And I'm walking in this world like this. So I just have a faint blue light that surrounds me that's like fire, and I just continuously walk. And this stuff is like really sticky, and it wants to trap you inside this place. And it gets heavier and heavier and heavier. And it feels like if you allow it, it would overtake yourself. It'll make you really depressed and make you lost into it. So instead, I just allow I'm starting to hit the flames. They're brighter and brighter and brighter. And this stuff is staying away, but it's getting really, 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 really heavy. And it's actually, it would make a lot of people like scrunch over and like become like a ball, and then it'll be permanently a ball, and this stuff is bad. It would create all kinds of nightmares for you. It is not a good place. And I see this place has many, 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 many souls that are trapped in here. And I'm not meant to set these free. They have to learn to set themselves free. This is interesting because I do have a draw to help these souls, but in order to go where we're going, we have to be able to do this ourselves. We have to have because there's something about the journey that tests your ability to reach this place. You have to be ready for it. There's something important about that. I see, as I'm walking up, there's another archway, and there's two women that are breastfeeding a baby. And they're sitting on the doorway and they're humming a song. And one has the baby on the left breast and the other one has it on the right breast. And they're sitting on the opposite. So the left side is the right breast and the right side is the left breast. It's interesting. And they're humming a song. And I ask them, and it's a very pretty song, but there's something about, it's almost like a siren of the old days when you're in the water. The siren is beautiful sounds until you get close to it. It starts to twist and form into something really disgusting. And this is what this is. These are two sirens. And when I get close to them, they warp and twist into this horrifying creatures that go around the archway and have these long spikes that come down. It says basically like the shall not pass type thing. They don't say that, but that's what it feels like when you get close to it. And interestingly, as I come close, these spikes come straight at me. And again, this time I put a really powerful light, and these spikes go around it, like it's like a bubble around me, and they go around me. As I walk up, I walk straight through, because for some reason these spikes aren't able to penetrate the light. They have to go around it. It looks like they're really strong, but they're actually moldable, and they will go around. And again, I walk through the archway. And then everything flips, and now it's all messes with your mind, because I'm still you could say I'm at the bottom of the pyramid, but I was going to go to the top, and then now they're trying to get me to believe that I'm at the bottom. So all I do is I flip the pyramid back up, so I walk through and I'm at the top of the pyramid. And I walk in that way, because otherwise you'll just start the whole process over and you never get past this point. So you have to be able to flip the reality to what is the truth and not what is the lies. And that's the key here. What is the truth and what is lies? Your soul has to be able to identify what is the truth and what is the lies. And I walk through that gateway and into the top part of the pyramid. When I walk into the top part of the pyramid, I instantly feel like I'm in a space of trees, like like an oasis in a way. And I feel quite at peace here. But that's only half of it. No, a quarter of it. And when I walk over, there's a place that is like, okay, this top part of the pyramid is split into 4 pieces. One part is a beautiful oasis and trees and really pleasant. I love forest, so it's a very peaceful place for me. In the center, there's something very interesting. And in the right corner, like I'm just looking at the corners of this pyramid, and each section of the pyramid is broken into 4 sections. And one is like literally fire and brimstone. It's like insanely, it's like the worst type of hell. The other one is like frozen. And then the other one is water, and the other one is a beautiful forest. And this is what I experience. Like fire, like in brimstone, like the core of the earth, you could say. Because it's not a hell space. It's a space that is full of fire. And the other space is something that's frozen. And the other space is like the bottom of the ocean. It's super dense and heavy. And then you're in an area that is on the surface. It has beautiful skies and forest areas. It's like a very breathable space. And in the center, there's a very interesting thing. I'm not sure what it is yet. It's like connected to all four of these spaces. And there's one more space that's directly above it all. So, interestingly, as I walk towards the center, I instantly look up, and it's almost like there's a staircase that moves up, but it's not really a staircase. But the energy goes up to the very top, and it's flat, and then you have to reach up into something that's above everything. The very tip of the pyramid. And so I walk up to the top, and I see there's a representation of each one of these things at the top part of these stairs. And it's like it's flat, so you walk up, there's a representation of the forest area, there's representation of the fire, there's representation of the ocean, and representation of the frozen, like the Arctic, so to speak. And each of them are reaching up towards, and they're creating energy that goes up into the very tip. So I'm watching this, and to try to go into the center is not easy to do, because there's nothing really there, and all the energy is flowing upward anyway. So it's like literally trying to walk into that space doesn't seem to really exist. It does exist, but it doesn't exist at the same time. It's these pillars of light that are going up from each one of these, go up, pointing up, and this is how you reach the top. Okay, I have to split myself up into 4 different versions of myself. This is how I'm seeing this. So I put myself in each one of these things and have to experience each one of them. And surprisingly, my soul already knows this. So I could become 4 versions of myself. And I allow myself to become energy and light, and I flow upwards to the base of this place. And it's like the ground itself is, as you come up through, you're forced, these 4 versions of yourself are forced together into a key. And that key goes up into this, and it spins counterclockwise and opens up, like it almost like becomes water, and you spin up into this room. This is what I'm experiencing. And this is my own version of what I see. And every single person will have their own version of what they experience. This is what I'm hearing. Every person's soul understands this place differently than everyone else. Except people need to understand that this place exists. It's important that you go to it in your own way at the right time. But it's not knowing it exists is like not knowing, like not believing that you are human. Because this is part of being human, this space. It's part of who you are. It's part of the essence. It's part of how things work here. And I'm sitting here, and there's a very large person. It's large, and they're sitting down, and their arms and fingers go down into the floor, and there's something growing up the arms of this being, and this being is Doesn't even seem like it's alive, but it is. And it's not able to stand. It is actually growing into the statue. It's into the, you could say it's a throne, and is growing into it. So to get this thing out, you would have to basically remove the roots from this ground that's around it. But it's stone, it's not ground. It's like a weird thing it's almost like a fungus or rot that came up and is now growing into this. And this rot's a really good way of putting it. There's a rot that's growing into the arms of this thing and the legs of this being. A rot. And I see that this used to be a vibrant place, but it's dying. This rot is everywhere. And there's beings that are also here that are rotted. They're not really functioning correctly, and there's pieces of them that are missing, and rot is coming into them, and they're sort of moving, but they're not doing what they're supposed to do, because they're literally, it's like walking into a friggin' video game zombie apocalyptic scene. But none of these things have the capability of really doing anything except sending rot to the minds and souls of people on Earth. And what does that mean when you have something that is supposed to be in control of the human race, or at least one of the people that are in charge of looking after the human race, is sending rot to the world? What is that rot exactly? And where is it coming from? And why is it here? I place my hand on the rot itself, and it instantly starts to grow up my arm, and I stop it immediately. And I push it back so it's only at the tip of my fingertip. And I experience the rot. And it's like, there's so much information here. It's just unbelievable. It just goes going through time. And really, 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 really fast. And okay, this being at one time was like a child, full of love, full of light, and it sat down on this throne and had beautiful, unbelievable happiness and joy, and it had so much potential. And okay, so when it sat down on this throne, these ideas start to flow throughout the world, and instantly, bang, 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 all over the world was these eyes, bang, bang, right at this child. So then scheming started to happen, and ideas and complex, ridiculously long-term goals were forged by certain individuals. And the understanding is, you can't corrupt this being unless you corrupt the world. And the more you corrupt the world, the more this being gets corrupted. Because this being is part of every consciousness on earth. It's not God, though. However, it is like that because it basically breathes in our consciousness from all over the world. Even the earth itself breathes it in. So the more suffering there is, the more this being breathes it in. And what ended up happening is that there was specific goals put in place to cause this rot. And this rot is created by us. We created the rot into this being. This being was, and it's interesting because he is a child. He is a little boy. And they had to manipulate the innocence of children in order to get at this being. And they did a pretty damn good job of making this being. It's sad, because this being is barely functioning. The rod itself is what's sending the information to the world. And this is not the way it's supposed to be. This is what happens when we allow beings and people and souls that are corrupt and messed up control the world for so long. This is what happens when good people don't speak, when good people don't stand up. So, like, when you look at this situation, you could easily blame this being for creating all our problems, but ultimately, it's the messed up beings throughout time, throughout space, the human beings, and collaborated by these twisted versions of chaos that have created this. And now something that is supposed to help the world is corrupting the world and filling it full of gross rot. And one thing about rot, it's dry. This specific rot, it's like a fungus that's been, it's really dry here. So I set it ablaze, the whole place. I just burn it as I grow, I get brighter and brighter and brighter, and the fire gets like really, 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 really hot. And I open doorways that come from below. Believe it or not, it can't seem to open doorways that come from above. They have to come from below. It's interesting. This is how protected this place is from above. Nothing seems to be able to come in except from the way that I came in. I just burn everything. And I'm burning the rot. I'm not burning the beings themselves. Just the rot that created it. When the smoke clears, man, it's like I pull all the smoke into an orb because I can barely see anything. I know the stuff happening here, and anyway, I pull all this smoke, and what's left, okay, it's really hard to take, because when you take away, like if you have a person that has cancer over 80% of its body and it's still alive, and you cut away and remove 80%, what's left? This is what I'm dealing with right now, is what's left of all these beings that were here to help the human race it's horrifying. So again, I call in light beings, my higher self. There's a light that appears below me that comes out, and there's things that are shooting into the space. And they're ribbons of light that wrap around all these beings and pull them back through the floor. They do this to everyone except for the one that's on the throne. That was surprisingly, all it's missing is its arms, most of its arms and its legs, and part of its heart, believe it or not, and part of its brain. But it's surprisingly intact compared to the rest. And I walk over and I help him off the throne. And there's a being that comes up that has many, many arms. And they're arms of light. And they take this being and they hold it in their arms. And all this being is like a mother. It might even be his mother. And she just cries. And the tears reach the soul of this being. And its eyes open up. And it is healing this being, the tears. And this is happening, and all of a sudden I'm surrounded by all kinds of beings of light. And they're very tall and have very long robes, and they have this interesting thing that on their heads that goes around and comes down their backs of their hair, which is part of the robes, it seems like. And they're very slender, and they're very, very peaceful. And they make a sound. I've never heard anything like this before. And it creates like a weird, like a wisp, a sound that comes down and around. And it's very, it seems like it goes into the ground and back up and wraps around into a pinpoint of light that stays. And then goes back into the ground again and grows something. It's like, it's very unique, and it's all done by their voices, which aren't really, it's extremely difficult to explain. And I see all these lights, like a thing, like it's almost like a grass that grows up. It's very slender at the top. It has a ball, like an oval shaped light. And this is formed all over this place. And this mother figure, so to speak, turns into a ball of light and pulls this being and like wraps itself around this being that used to be on the throne and goes down into the space. And all I'm left is a room full of these tall, slender beings that are kind of like singing and creating these long, thin things of light. And it starts to grow throughout every space, except for the walkway up to the throne. And it feels like they're waiting. It's almost like every soul needs to sit on this throne to put a version of themselves that's possible. I'm not sure, because I'm just waiting and nothing's happening, and there's literally just that concept inside my mind. So I go up the stairs and I sit on the throne. And as soon as I sit, I feel like I'm being pulled back, like those old rides that spin really good and you're stuck against the wall. And when that happens, it's almost like when, what the hell, in Lord of the Rings, where Gandalf describes what happened to him when he fought the Balrog. It feels like that's what I'm experiencing and seeing when he's going through space and time. And I stop at a world full of children. And I get off the throne and I see a specific child, a very special child, that I walk over to, and he's glowing a blue color. He's blue, actually. And I ask him, would he be able to come with me? I came here to ask you to come to this specific place at this time. in some ways, he already knew, because he stands up and he walks over and takes my hand. And we walk back up to the throne. He sits on my lap, and we go back into the room again. And when I go back into the room, the boy is now full-grown man, but he's still a boy. And he has blue skin. And all of the beings that were singing turn into blue beings as well, of light. And all the actual pins of grass are part of the human. It's almost like you can wish something, and when I wish something, it goes into like the grass turns into like a worm-like thing that floats over, and the boy takes it and he places it in his heart. So all the wishes of the human race, or of myself maybe, because this is part of who I am in my experience, but I'm also a human being that's living on earth. So I am basically, I split myself up into all these things, and I make a wish. And all my wishes and all my dreams of a better world float up into this being's heart, this child. Because what is the best energy in the universe that's not corrupted by human aging, so to speak? A child is pure. There's a long time, and all these wishes flow into the being. And I don't even have to really know, because I don't have to specifically say them, because it's already known what it is inside my heart. And when the last one reaches the boy's heart, he doesn't get off the throne. He just smiles at me. And I end up back where I'm at now. But there's a connection that's never going to go away. It's like you could call it hope, or no, it's more than that. It's something different. It's the word I'm trying to say. The understanding that love does exist, and there's beings that are truly out to help us in our own way. But we have to take the initiative to try to change the world, because when we do that, we discover things that truly change the world. That's the message. That's what he's telling me at the end. Thank you very much, everyone, and thank you for going with that journey with me. It was pretty meaningful. And if you wish to do a journey with me one-on-one, you can visit my website at awakening.com, or you can visit my other pages as Yukon Skies and Joseph Bradley Auroras for my Northern Lights stuff. Thank you very much, and again, thank you for everything. Take care.